the candidate experience is definitely the most one of the most important aspects, especially not having a process that takes too long. Even having a lot of steps, it's important that it doesn't take too long between those steps. And we have found that making adjustments in those steps and having to have less time between steps and reaching a conclusion faster allows us to retain candidates in the process for longer, and that gives us a better shot at hiring more people.
There are different types of people. So some of them would prefer to have right ahead a call, but a lot of them are keen to actually show code how they would normally produce it, right? So you normally don't produce code on a whiteboard, writing under pressure with other people looking at it, or on a call. So where you're at home with your Google searching for answers on Stack Overflow for doubts that you haven't, that for things that you haven't touched in a while. That's normal. That's how you actually produce code. So we actually want our technical interviews to be much more similar to what is actually live in coding than just having like an expert on interviews. And sometimes we were finding experts on interviews that did not match experts in life, like in coding, right?
So the results is that we decreased the number of calls. It's hard to tell exactly how much of the decrease it was, because that allowed us also to have a lot more candidates in the pipeline. We understood that we could do a screening process that was a lot faster, so that we allowed a lot more candidates. We think that we maintained the effectiveness of the first stage, being able to have an actual filter there. We see an at least 50% drop off of candidates after, not drop off in the sense that they give up, but in the sense that they don't pass the assessments. So that's a good filter there for the candidates that actually go to the tech interview. We feel like the Scout team, have an easier time with screening the candidates with less fit or no fit, because we know at least we have a tool that allows us to evaluate the basic requirements for each one of the roles. We feel like we've saved the engineers' time with this, because going back and forth, we're trying to book calls and seeing the calendars of 3 different people and trying to adjust a lot of times. This makes it a lot easier, and the process a lot faster, even though we do give the candidates 7 days to do the tests. So even taking that into account, it's still faster. We've seen that we have decreased in at least around 10 days of this stage, going from calls to the tests. We also see that we do fewer technical interviews, and the technical interviews that do happen, they have a starting point. They can at least start with a test and debate on what the decisions that were made there. And we feel like that really allowed us to scale this whole process, to bring in a lot more people, because while the process is streamlined and it's faster, and we're able to meet a lot more people, and come to a conclusion of the hiring process with a lot more people, thus hiring more people. We have sent so far, since we started with DevSkiller, some 4,000 tests. So it's a lot of candidates. We receive even more of those that didn't pass the CV screening phase, and then those candidates have seen the tests. So we have that allow us to really go through a lot more candidates.
Maybe no surprises here. I think it's a mix of all of these things that kind of brought us to evaluate and ultimately select DevSkiller as a partner. But I think quality of hire for us it's equal parts like how you show up in your behavior and how you also, your technical skills and your ability. And being able to have the combination and the balance between both of those while having a great candidate experience, I think is the sweet spot that DevSkiller provides.
So as far as how it's affected our hiring process, we actually have a very proud and opinionated group of engineers at Headspring, and they're not. It's not like they're stuck up or anything, but they're very opinionated, in particular about the things to look for with new candidates. And so everyone was very comfortable with the FizzBuzz exercise we had before, and I was bracing myself for a hard conversion to get everybody else at the company on board with DevSkiller. And so what I did was I set up a series of meetings and demos for our primary engineering group that do most of the candidate exercise reviews. And I walked them through what DevSkiller provides. And what I found is that a little bit of hesitation kind of quickly turned to excitement. And now it's one of the first things that people ask for. It's like, well, how are they doing the DevSkiller? What did the DevSkiller look like? Because it's become kind of that trusted tool in the background. For the way we set it up, we previously our code review stage was, like I mentioned before, that kind of minimum of 15, maximum of 1 hour per engineer to go in and look at it per candidate. And now we've switched that and we've split it into 2 different subsections. And so every candidate first goes through the DevSkiller platform and they run the exercise and they get that initial kind of score. And then we have one engineer or myself who goes into each candidate and they just kind of glance at the initial results. And if those initial results meet a certain threshold, then they click accept. It pumps the score back over in a greenhouse, and then it goes on to the next stage where our engineering review group go in and they can skip kind of all that basic, pull down the code, try to run it, dig through the code and see if it meets all the feature requirements. Now they can jump straight into things like looking at the architecture, some of the things that do kind of take a more a keen eye, something that we can't really evaluate automatically. How they structure the code, how they build their classes, how they architect the solution to the problem, and kind of fill out some more subjective evaluation criteria. So ultimately, that initial stage, the DevSkiller part, takes approximately 5 minutes per candidate, 5 minutes or less, really, for that one engineer to go in, and they can knock them all out in about 30 minutes per day, even if we have a full pipeline. And for any candidates that make it past that initial stage of DevSkiller and go into the deeper code review section, now we can now our engineers really only take maybe like 15 to 30 minutes per candidate at that next stage to kind of dig into the architecture, because they know now that a lot of that initial stuff's already been done. And so it's made everything a lot smoother, a lot quicker. And now that we have a lot of this DevSkiller data to fall back on, we're able to kind of benchmark candidates against each other and feel more confident if they do get all the way to like the behavioral stage and then the offer stage, because now we can level them with a lot more confidence and know that when we bring them in, that we're bringing them in with the kind of expectations that we need to have for them at that level. Regarding like that first DevSkiller stage, I was actually surprised by how many we could filter out at that stage. I think I had stats somewhere, maybe Aaron has them on a later slide, but I want to say like 70% or so of candidates are eliminated at that DevSkiller stage, where they submit code that doesn't build, or it fails all the tests, or it passes some but doesn't meet our threshold for getting through the next level. And so most of our candidates that come in that don't meet some of those initial quality requirements that we're looking for never even have to go on to the full engineer review. And so that's immediate savings right there. And then finally, we can just reserve those prime candidates, those ones who do really well on DevSkiller, for that exclusive billable engineering time.
This slide, I think, really captures some of the key things, the key improvements that you spoke to, Ryan. So we might not hit on all of these, but looking at success after the implementation, we were able to easily transition to DevSkiller platform. It made sure that what our engineers were used to was easily integrated into a slick new platform. DevSkiller gave us the ability to quickly screen candidates and assess them. 90% of the basic technical acumen that we look for at that initial stage, and do it in a automated way. You heard Ryan mention this, but the technical review time cut down from 135 minutes to 5 to 10 minutes per candidate. And what I love about that, and what you said, Ryan, is that automation enables us to focus more on the soft skills, but also on some of the finer details of their code and architecture and how they organize their code and the cleanliness of it. And that, for me, is worth our engineers' time to spend that 5 to 2 minutes per candidate there and let the tool do the heavy lifting. Looking at the rejection stat that you mentioned, Ryan, today we've rejected around 70% of candidates at that initial DevSkiller stage, simply because of how I was going to say pedantic. We're really spirited about clean code. It's our business and what we provide to our clients. And so, Headspring is a place that genuinely everyone checks their ego at the door. But the one thing you'll get a lot of spirited debate on is good, clean code. Does the code compile? Does it run? And how does a candidate's ability to fit into that and write clean code, read clean code, write codes that meet the requirements, how does that all jive with the rest of the team? And so net result here for permanent hires is that we've saved countless billable engineering hours. We've been able to get our engineers in the right parts of the conversation and let the tool do the heavy lifting.